And the first verse. Sarai, Abram's wife, hadn't yet produced a child. She had an Egyptian maid named Hagar. Sarai said to Abram, God has not seen fit to let me have a child. Sleep with my maid. Maybe I can get a family from her. Abram agreed to do what Sarai said. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took her Egyptian maid Hagar and gave her to her husband Abram as a wife. Abram had been living 10 years in Canaan when this took place. He slept with Hagar and she got pregnant. When Hagar learned she was pregnant, she looked down on her mistress. Sarai told Abram, it's all your fault that I'm suffering this abuse. I put my maid in bed with you, and the minute she knows she's pregnant, she treats me like I'm nothing. May God decide which of us is right. You decide, said Abram. Your maid is your business. Sarai was abusive to Hagar, and Hagar ran away. An angel of God found her beside a spring in the desert. It was the spring on the road to Shur. He said, Hagar, maid of Sarai, what are you doing here? She said, I'm running away from Sarai, my mistress. The angel of God said, go back to your mistress, put up with her abuse. He continued, I'm going to give you a big family, children past counting. From this pregnancy, you'll get a son. Name him Ishmael. For God heard you. God answered you. He'll be a bucking bronco of a man, a real fighter, fighting and being fought, always stirring up trouble, always at odds with his family. She answered God by name, praying to God who spoke to her. You're the God who sees me. Yes, he saw me, and then I saw him. That's how that desert spring got the name God Alive Sees Me Spring. That spring is still there between Kadesh and Bered. Hagar gave Abram a son. Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar gave him his son Ishmael. Genesis 17. When Abram was 99 years old, God showed up and said to him, I'm the strong God. Live entirely before me. Live to the hilt. I'll make a covenant between us, and I'll give you a huge family. Overwhelmed, Abram fell flat on his face. Don't know what that was. Then God said to him, this is my covenant with you. You'll be the father of many nations. Your name will no longer be Abram, but Abraham, meaning that I'm making you the father of many nations. I'll make you a father of fathers. I'll make nations from you. Kings will issue from you. I'm establishing my covenant between me and you, a covenant that includes your descendants, a covenant that goes on and on and on, a covenant that commits me to be your God and the God of your descendants. And I'm giving you and your descendants this land where you're now just camping, this whole country of Canaan to own forever. And I'll be their God. And God continued to Abraham, and you will honor my covenant, you and your descendants, generation after generation. This is the covenant that you are to honor, the covenant that pulls in all your descendants. Circumcise every male, circumcised by cutting off the foreskin of the penis. It will be the sign of the covenant between us. Every male baby will be circumcised when he is 8 days old, generation after generation. This includes houseborn slaves and slaves brought from the outsiders who are not blood kin. Make sure you circumcise both your own children and anyone brought in from outside. That way my covenant will be cut into your body, a permanent mark of my permanent covenant. An uncircumcised male, one who has not had the foreskin of his penis cut off, will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. God continued speaking to Abraham. And Sarai, your wife, don't call her Sarai any longer. Call her Sarah. I'll bless her. Yes, I'll give you a son by her. Oh, how I'll bless her. Nations will come from her. Kings of nations will come from her. Abraham fell flat on his face, and then he laughed, thinking, can a 100-year-old man father a son, and can Sarah at 90 years have a baby? Recovering, Abram said to God, oh, keep Ishmael alive and well before you. But God said, that's not what I mean. Your wife Sarah will have a baby, a son. Name him Isaac, laughter. I'll establish my covenant with him and his descendants, a covenant that lasts forever. And Ishmael, yes, I heard your prayer for him, and I'll bless him. I'll make sure he has plenty of children, a huge family. He'll father 12 princes. I'll make him a great nation. But I'll establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will give you, about this time next year. God finished speaking with Abraham and left. Then Abraham took his son Ishmael and all his servants, whether houseborn or purchased, every male in his household, and circumcised them, cutting off the foreskins that very day, just as God had told him. Abraham was 99 years old, when he was circumcised. His son Ishmael was 13 years old when he was circumcised. Abram and Ishmael were circumcised the same day together with all the servants of his household. Those born there and those purchased from outsiders, all were circumcised with him. Genesis 18. God appeared to Abraham at the oaks of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance of his tent. It was the hottest part of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing. He ran from his tent to greet them and bowed before them. He said, Master, if it please you, stop for a while with your servant. I'll get some water. You can wash your feet. Rest under this tree. I'll get some food to refresh you on your way, since your travels have brought you across my path. They said, certainly, go ahead. Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. He said, hurry, get 3 cups of our best flour, knead it, and make bread. Then Abraham ran to the cattle pen and picked out a nice plump calf and gave it to the servant, who lost no time getting it ready. Then he got curds and milk and brought them with the calf that had been roasted, set the meal before them, and stood there under the tree while they ate. The men said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" He said, "In the tent." One of them said, "I'm coming back about this time next year. When I arrive, your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening at the tent opening just behind the man. Abraham and Sarah were old by this time, very old. Sarah was far past age for having babies. Sarah laughed within herself. An old woman like me get pregnant with this old man of a husband? God said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'Me have a baby, an old woman like me'? Is anything too hard for God? I'll be back about this time next year and Sarah will have a baby." Sarah lied. She said, "I didn't laugh," because she was afraid. But he said, "Yes, you did. You laughed." When the men got up to leave, they set off for Sodom. Abraham walked with them to say goodbye. Then God said, "Shall I keep back from Abraham what I'm about to do? Abraham is going to become a large and strong nation. All the nations of the world are going to find themselves blessed through him. Yes, I've settled on him as the one to train his children and future family to observe God's way of life. Live kindly and generously and fairly so that God can complete in Abraham what he promised him." God continued, "The cries of the victims in Sodom and Gomorrah are deafening. The sin of those cities is immense. I'm going down to see for myself, see if what they're doing is as bad as it sounds. Then I'll know." The men set out for Sodom, but Abraham stood in God's path, blocking his way. Abraham confronted him. "Are you serious? Are you planning on getting rid of the good people right along with the bad? What if there are 50 decent people left in the city? Will you lump the good with the bad and get rid of the lot? Wouldn't you spare the city for the sake of those 50 innocents? I can't believe you'd do that. Kill off the good and the bad alike as if there were no difference between them. Doesn't the judge of all the earth judge with justice?" God said, "If I find 50 decent people in the city of Sodom, I'll spare the place just for them." Abraham came back. "Do I, a mere mortal, made from a handful of dirt, dare open my mouth again to my master? What if the 50 fall short by 5? Would you destroy the city because of those missing 5? He said, "I won't destroy it if there are 45. Abraham spoke up again. "What if you only find 40? Neither will I destroy it for 40. He said, "Master, don't be irritated with me, but what if only 30 are found?" "No, I won't do it if I find 30. He pushed on. "I know I'm trying your patience, Master, but how about for 20? "I won't destroy it for 20. He wouldn't quit. "Don't get angry, Master. This is the last time. "What if you only come up with 10? "For the sake of only 10, I won't destroy the city." When God finished talking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham went home. Genesis chapter 19. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening. Lot was sitting at the city gate. He saw them and got up to welcome them, bowing before them and said, "Please, my friends, come to my house and stay the night. Wash up. You can rise early and be on your way refreshed." They said, "No, we'll sleep in the street." But he insisted, wouldn't take no for an answer, and they relented and went home with him. Lot fixed a hot meal for them, and they ate. Before they went to bed, men from all over the city of Sodom, young and old, descended on the house from all sides and boxed them in. They yelled to Lot, "Where are the men who are staying with you for the night? Bring them out so that we can have our sport with them." Lot went out, barring the door behind him, and said, "Brothers, please don't be vile. Look, I have 2 daughters, virgins. Let me bring them out. You can take your pleasure with them, but don't touch these men. They are my guests." They said, "Get lost. You drop in from nowhere, and now you're going to tell us how to run our lives? We'll treat you worse than them." And they charged past Lot to break down the door. But the 2 men reached out and pulled Lot inside the house, locking the door. Then they struck the blind men who were trying to break down the door, both leaders and followers, leaving them groping in the dark. The 2 men said to Lot, "Do you have any other family here? Sons, daughters, anybody in the city? Get them out of here now. We're going to destroy this place. The outcries of victims here to God are deafening. We've been sent to blast this place into oblivion." Lot went out and warned the fiancés of his daughters, "Evacuate this place. God is about to destroy this city." But his daughters' would-be husbands treated it as a joke. At break of day, the angels pushed Lot to get going. "Hurry, get your wife and 2 daughters out of here before it's too late, and you're caught in the punishment of the city." Lot was dragging his feet. The man grabbed Lot's arm and the arms of his wife and daughters. God was so merciful to them, and dragged them to safety outside the city. When they had them outside, Lot was told, "Now run for your life. Don't look back. Don't stop anywhere on the plain. Run for the hills, or you'll be swept away." But Lot protested, "No, masters, you can't mean it. I know that you've taken a liking to me and have done me an immense favor in saving my life, but I can't run for the mountains. Who knows what terrible thing might happen to me in the mountains and leave me for dead? Look over there. That town is close enough to get to. It's a small town, hardly anything to it. Let me escape there and save my life. It's a mere wide place in the road." "All right, Lot, if you insist, I'll let you have your way and I won't stamp you out of the town you've spotted. But hurry up, run for it. I can't do anything until you get there." That's why the town was called Zoar, that is, small town. The sun was high in the sky when Lot arrived at Zoar. Then God rained brimstone and fire down on Sodom and Gomorrah, a river of lava from God out of the sky, and destroyed these cities and the entire plain, and everyone who lived in the cities and everything that grew from the ground. But Lot's wife looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. Abraham got up early the next morning and went to the place he had so recently stood with God. He looked out over Sodom and Gomorrah, surveying the whole plain. All he could see was smoke, belching from the earth like smoke from a furnace. And that's the story. When God destroyed the cities of the plain, he was mindful of Abraham and first got Lot out of there before he blasted those cities off the face of the earth. Lot left Zoar and went into the mountains to live with his 2 daughters. He was afraid to stay in Zoar. He lived in a cave with his daughters. One day the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father's getting old, and there's not a man left in the country by whom we can get pregnant. Let's get our father drunk with wine and lie with him. We'll get children through our father. It's our only chance to keep our family alive." They got their father drunk with wine that very night. The older daughter went out and lay with him. He was oblivious, knowing nothing of what she did. The next morning, the older said to the younger, "Last night I slept with my father. Tonight it's your turn. We'll get him drunk again, and then you sleep with him. We'll both get a child through our father and keep our family alive." So that night they got their father drunk again, and the younger went in and slept with him. Again, he was oblivious, knowing nothing of what she did. Both daughters became pregnant by their father Lot. The older daughter had a son and named him Moab, the ancestor of the present-day Moabites. The youngest daughter had a son and named him Ben-Ami, the ancestor of the present-day Ammonites. Genesis chapter 20. Abraham traveled from there south to the Negev and settled down between Kadesh and Shur. While he was camping in Gerar, Abraham said to Sarah, his wife, Abraham said of his wife, "Sarah, she's my sister." So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream that night and told him, "You're as good as dead. That woman you took, she's a married woman." Now Abimelech had not slept with her yet. He hadn't so much as touched her. He said, "Master, would you kill an innocent man? Didn't he tell me she's my sister? And didn't she herself say he's my brother? I had no idea I was doing anything wrong when I did this." God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know your intentions were pure. That's why I kept you from sinning against me. I was the one who kept you from going to bed with her. So now give the man's wife back to him. He's a prophet and will pray for you. Pray for your life. If you don't give her back, know that it's certain death for both you and everyone in your household." Abimelech was up first thing in the morning. He called all his house servants together and told them the whole story. They were shocked. Then Abimelech called in Abraham and said, "What have you done to us? What have I ever done to you that you would bring on me and my kingdom this huge offense? What you've done to me ought never to have been done." Abimelech went on to Abraham, whatever were you thinking when you did this thing?" Abraham said, "I assumed there was no fear of God in this place and that they'd kill me to get my wife. Besides, the truth is that she's my half-sister. She's my father's daughter, but not my mother's. When God sent me out as a wanderer from my father's home, I told her, 'Do me a favor. Wherever we go, tell people that I'm your brother.' Then Abimelech gave Sarah back to Abraham. Along with her, he sent sheep and cattle and servants, both male and female. He said, 'My land is open to you. Live wherever you wish.' And to Sarah, he said, 'I've given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. That clears you of even a shadow of suspicion before the eyes of the world. You're vindicated.' Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his maidservants, and they started having babies again. For God had shut down every woman in Abimelech's household on account of Sarah, Abraham's wife." Genesis 21. God visited Sarah exactly as he said he would. God did to Sarah what he promised. Sarah became pregnant and gave Abraham a son in his old age, and at that very time God had said. Abraham named him Isaac. When his son was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him just as God had commanded. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. Sarah said, "God has blessed me with laughter, and all who get the news will laugh with me." She also said, "Whoever would have suggested to Abraham that Sarah would have one day nurse a baby? Yet here I am. I've given the old man a son." The baby grew and was weaned, and Abraham threw a big party on the day Isaac was weaned. One day Sarah saw the son that Hagar the Egyptian had born to Abraham poking fun at her son Isaac. She told Abraham, "Get rid of this slave woman and her son. No child of this slave is going to share inheritance with my son Isaac." The matter gave great pain to Abraham. After all, Ishmael was his son. But God spoke to Abraham, "Don't feel badly about the boy and your maid. Do whatever Sarah tells you. Your descendants will come through Isaac. Regarding your maid's son, be assured that I'll develop a great nation from him. He's your son too." Abraham got up early the next morning, got some food together and a canteen of water for Hagar, and put them on her back and sent her away with the child. She wandered off into the desert of Beersheba. When the water was gone, she left the child under a shrub and went off 50 yards or so. She said, "I can't watch my son die." As she sat, she broke into sobs. Meanwhile, God heard the boy crying. The angel of God called from heaven to Hagar. "What's wrong, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy and knows the fix he's in. Up now, go get the boy. Hold him tight. I'm going to make him a great nation. Make of him a great nation." Just then, God opened her eyes. She looked. She saw a well of water. She went to it and filled a canteen and gave the boy a long, cool drink. God was on the boy's side as he grew up. He lived out in the desert and became a skilled archer. He lived in the Paran wilderness, and his mother got him a wife from Egypt. At about the same time, Abimelech and the captain of his troops, Pekol, spoke to Abraham. "No matter what you do, God is on your side. So swear to me that you won't do anything underhanded to me or any of my family. For as long as you live here, swear that you'll treat me and my land as well as I've treated you." Abraham said, "I swear to it." At the same time, Abraham confronted Abimelech over the matter of a well of water that Abimelech's servants had taken. Abimelech said, I have no idea who did this. You never told me about it. This is the first I've heard of it. So the two of them made a covenant. Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech. Abraham set aside 7 sheep from his flock. Abimelech said, what does this mean, these 7 sheep you set aside? Abraham said, it means that when you accept these 7 sheep, you take it as proof that I dug this well, that it's my well. That's how the place got the name Beersheba, the oath well, because the two of them swore a covenant of oath there. After they made the covenant at Beersheba, Abimelech and his commander Phicol left and went back to the Philistine territory. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and worshiped God there, praying to the eternal God. Abraham lived in the Philistine country for a long time. Genesis chapter 22. After all this, God tested Abraham. God said, Abraham? Yes, answered Abraham, I'm listening. He said, take your dear son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I'll point out to you. Abraham got up early in the morning and saddled his donkey. He took 2 of his young servants and his son Isaac. He had split wood for the burnt offering. He set out for the place God had directed him. On the 3rd day, he looked up and saw the place in the distance. Abraham told his young servants, stay here with the donkey. The boy and I are going over there to worship. Then we'll come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and gave it to Isaac, his son, to carry. He carried the flint and the knife. The 2 of them went off together. Isaac said to Abraham, his father, Father? Yes, my son. We have flint and wood, but where's the sheep for the burnt offering? Abraham said, Son, God will see to it that there's a sheep for the burnt offering. And they kept on walking together. They arrived at the place to which God had directed him. Abraham built an altar. He laid out the wood. Then he tied up Isaac and laid him on the wood. Abraham reached out and took the knife to kill his son. Just then an angel of God called out to him out of heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Yes, I'm listening. Don't lay a hand on that boy. Don't touch him. Now I know how fearlessly you fear God. You didn't hesitate to place your son, your dear son, on the altar for me. Abraham looked up. He saw a ram caught by its horns in the thicket. Abraham took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham named that place God Yireh. God sees to it. That's where we get the saying, on the mountain of God, he sees to it. The angel of God spoke from heaven a second time to Abraham. I swear God's sure word, because you have gone through with this and have not refused to give me your son, your dear, dear son, I'll bless you. Oh, how I'll bless you. And I'll make sure that your children flourish like stars in the sky, like sand on the beaches, and your descendants will defeat their enemies. All nations on earth will find themselves blessed through your descendants because you obeyed me. Then Abraham went back to his young servants. They got things together and returned to Beersheba. Abraham settled down in Beersheba. After all this, Abraham got the news. Your brother Nahor is a father. Milcah has given him children. Uz, his firstborn, his brother Buz, Kemuel, he was the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel was the father of Rebekah. Milcah gave these 8 sons to Nahor, Abraham's brother. His concubine Remuah gave him 4 more children, Tebah, Gahum, Tahash, and Makkah. Genesis 23. Sarah lived 127 years. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, present-day Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Abraham mourned for Sarah and wept. Then Abraham got up from the mountain, got up from mourning his dead wife, and spoke to the Hittites. I know I'm only an outsider here among you, but sell me a burial plot so that I can bury my dead decently. The Hittites responded, Why, you're no mere outsider here with us. You're a prince of God. Bury your dead wife in the best of our burial sites. None of us will refuse you a place of burial. Then Abraham got up, bowed respectfully to the people of the land, the Hittites, and said, If you're serious about helping me give my wife a proper burial, intercede for me with Ephron, son of Zohar. Ask him to sell me the cave of Machpelah that he owns, the one at the end of his land. Ask him to sell it to me at its full price for a burial plot with you as witnesses. Ephron was part of the local Hittite community. And Ephron the Hittite spoke up, answering Abraham with all the Hittites who were part of the town council listening. Oh, no, my master, I couldn't do that. The field is yours, a gift. I'll give it and the cave to you. With my people as witnesses, I give it to you. Bury your deceased wife. Abraham bowed respectfully before the assembled council and answered Ephron, Please allow me. I want to pay the price of the land. Take my money so that I can go ahead and bury my wife. Then Ephron answered Abraham, If you insist, master, what's 400 silver shekels between us? Now go ahead and bury your wife. Abraham accepted Ephron's offer and paid out the sum that Ephron had named before the town council of the Hittites, 400 silver shekels at the current exchange rate. That's how Ephron's field next to Mamre, the field, its cave, and all of its trees within its borders, became Abraham's property. The town council of Hittites witnessed the transaction. Abraham then proceeded to bury his wife Sarah in the cave in the field of Machpelah, that is next to Mamre, present-day Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and its cave went from the Hittites into Abraham's possession as a burial plot. Genesis chapter 24, Isaac and Rebekah. Abraham was now an old man. God had blessed Abraham in every way. Abraham spoke to the senior servant in his house, the one in charge of everything he had. Put your hand under my thigh and swear by God, God of heaven, God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from among the young women of the Canaanites here, but will go to the land of my birth and get a wife for my son Isaac. The servant answered, but what if the woman refuses to leave home and come with me? Do I then take your son back to your home country? Abraham said, oh, no, never. By no means are you to take my son back there. God, the God of heaven, took me from the home of my father and from the country of my birth and spoke to me in solemn promise. I'm giving this land to your descendants. This God will send his angel ahead of you to get a wife for my son. And if the woman won't come, you're free from this oath you've sworn to me. But under no circumstances are you to take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of his master Abraham and gave his solemn oath. The servant took 10 of his master's camels and loaded with gifts from his master, traveled to Aram, Napharam, and the city of Nahor. Outside the city, he made the camels kneel at the well. It was evening, the time when the women came to draw water. He prayed, O God, God of my master Abraham, make things go smoothly this day. Treat my master Abraham well as I stand here by the spring while the young women of the town come out to get water. Let the girl to whom I say, lower your jug and give me a drink, and who answers, drink and let me also water your camels. Let her be the woman you have picked out for your servant Isaac. Then I'll know that you're working graciously behind the scenes for my master. And it so happened that the words were barely out of his mouth when Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, whose mother was Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with a water jug on her shoulder. The girl was stunningly beautiful, a pure virgin. She went down to the spring, filled a jug, and came back. The servant ran to meet her and said, please, can I have a sip of water from your jug? She said, certainly, drink. And she held the jug so that he could drink. When he had finished with his thirst, when he had satisfied his thirst, she said, I'll get water for your camels too until they've drunk their full. She promptly emptied her jug into the trough and ran back to the well to fill it, and she kept at it until she'd watered all the camels. The man watched silent. Was this God's answer? Had God made his trip a success or not? When the camels had finished drinking, the man brought out gifts, a gold nose ring weighing a little over 1/4 of an ounce, and 2 arm bracelets weighing about 4 ounces, and gave them to her. He asked her, tell me about your family. Whose daughter are you? Is there room in your father's house for us to stay the night? She said, I'm the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah and Nahor. And there's plenty of room in our house for you to stay, and lots of straw and feed besides. At this, the man bowed and worshiped before God and prayed, blessed be God, God of my master Abraham. How generous and true you've been to my master. You've held nothing back. You led me right to the door of my master's brother. And the girl was off and running, telling everyone in her mother's household what had happened. Rebekah had a brother named Laban. Laban ran outside to the man at the spring. He had seen the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister and had heard her say, the man said this and this and this to me. The man said this and this and this to me. Okay. So he went to the man, and there he was, still standing with his camels at the spring. Laban welcomed him. Come on in, blessed of God. Why are you standing out here? I've got the house ready for you, and there's also a place for your camels. So the man went into the house. The camels were unloaded and given straw and feed. Water was brought to bathe the feet of the man and the men with him. Then Laban brought out food, but the man said, I won't eat until I tell my story. Laban said, go ahead and tell us. The servant said, I'm servant of Abraham. God has blessed my master. He's a great man. God has given him sheep and cattle, silver and gold, servants and maidservants, camels and donkeys. And then to top it off, Sarah, my master's wife, gave him a son in her old age, and he has passed everything on to his son. My master made me a promise. Don't get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I live. No, go to my father's home, back to my family, and get a wife for my son there. I said to my master, but what if the woman won't come with me? He said, God before whom I've walked faithfully will send his angel with you, and he'll make things work out for you so that you'll bring back a wife for my son from my family, from the house of my father. Then you'll be free from the oath. If you go to my family and they won't give her to you, you will be free from the oath. But when I came this very day to the spring, I prayed, God of my master Abraham, make things turn out at this well in the task that I've been given. I'm standing at this well when a young woman comes here to draw water, and I say to her, please give me a sip of water from your jug. And she says, not only will I give you a drink, I'll also water your camels. Let that woman be the wife God has picked out for my master's son. I had barely finished offering this prayer when Rebekah arrived, her jug on her shoulder. She went to the spring and drew water and said, please, can I have a drink? And I said, please, can I have a drink? She didn't hesitate. She held out her jug and said, drink, and when you finish, I'll also water your camels. I drank, and she watered the camels. I asked her, whose daughter are you? She said, the daughter of Bethuel, whose parents were Nahor and Milcah. I gave her a ring for her nose, bracelets for her arms, and bowed in worship to God. I praised God, the God of my master Abraham, who led me straight to the door of my master's family to get a wife for his son. Now tell me, what are you going to do? If you plan to respond with a generous yes, tell me. But if not, tell me plainly so I can figure out what to do next. Laban and Bethuel answered, this is undeniably from God. We have no say in the matter, either yes or no. Rebekah is yours. Take her and go. Let her be the wife of your master's son, as God has made plain. When Abraham's servant heard their decision, he bowed and worshipped before God. Then he brought out gifts of silver and gold and clothing and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave expensive gifts to her brother and mother. He and his men had supper and spent the night. But the first thing in the morning, they were up. He said, send me back to my master. Her brother and mother said, let the girl stay a while. Stay another 10 days and then go. He said, oh, no, don't make me wait. God has worked everything out so well. Send me off to my master. They said, well, call the girl. We'll ask her. They called Rebekah and asked her, do you want to go with this man? She said, I'm ready to go. So they sent them off. Lord have mercy, Jesus. So I'm ready to go. So they sent them off, their sister Rebekah with her nurse and Abraham's servant with his men. And they blessed Rebekah, saying, you're our sister, live bountifully, and your children triumphantly. Rebekah and her young maids mounted the camels and followed the man. The servant took Rebekah and set off for home. Isaac was living in the Negev. He had just come back from a visit to Beer Lahai Roy. And in the evening, he went out into the field. While meditating, he looked up and saw camels coming. When Rebekah looked up and saw Isaac, she got down from her camel and asked the servant, who is that man out in the field coming toward us? That's my master. She took her veil and covered herself. After the servant told Isaac the whole story of the trip, Isaac took Rebekah into the tent of his mother Sarah. He married Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac found comfort after his mother's death. Genesis chapter 25. Abraham married a second time, his new wife named Keturah. She gave birth to Zimram, Jokshan, Median, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan had Sheba and Dedan. Dedan's descendants were the Ashurim, the Letushim, and the Lumim. Midian had Ephah, Ephor, Hanak, Abida, and Eldah, all from the line of Keturah. But Abraham gave everything he possessed to Isaac. While he was still living, he gave gifts to the sons he had had by his concubines, but sent them away to the country of the east, putting a good distance between them and his son Isaac. Abraham lived 175 years, and he took his final breath. He died happy at a ripe old age, full of years, and was buried with his family. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, next to Mamre. It was the field that Abraham had bought from the Hittites. Abraham was buried next to his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac. Isaac lived at Beer Lahai Roy. The family tree of Ishmael. This is the family tree of Ishmael, son of Abraham, the son that This family tree of Ishmael, son of Abraham, the son that Hagar, the Egyptian, Sarah's maid, bore to Abraham. These are the names of Ishmael's sons in the order of their births. Nebaioth, Ishmael's firstborn, Kedar, Abdil, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. All the sons of Ishmael, their settlements and encampments were named after them, 12 princes with their 12 tribes. Ishmael lived 137 years. When he breathed his last, he died and was buried with his family. His children settled down all the way from Havilah near Egypt, eastward to Shur, in the direction of Assyria. The Ishmaelites didn't get along with any of their kin. Jacob and Esau. This is the family tree of Isaac, son of Abraham. Abraham had Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan Aram. She was the sister of Laban, the Aramean. Isaac prayed hard to God for his wife because she was barren. God answered his prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant. But the children tumbled and kicked inside her so much that she said, if this is the way it's going to be, why go on living? She went to God to find out what was going on. God told her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples butting heads while still in your body. One people will overpower the other, and the older will serve the younger. When her time to give birth came, sure enough, there were twins in her womb. The first came out reddish, as if snugly wrapped in a hairy blanket. They named him Esau, meaning hairy. His brother followed, his fist clutched tight to Esau's heel. They named him Jacob, meaning heel. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. The boys grew up. Esau became an expert hunter and outdoorsman. Jacob was a quiet man, preferring life indoors among the tents. Isaac loved Esau because he loved his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. One day, Jacob was cooking a stew. Esau came in from the field, starved. Esau said to Jacob, give me some of that red stew. I'm starved. That's how he came to be called Edom, meaning red. Jacob said, make me a trade. My stew for your rights as the firstborn. Esau said, I'm starving. What good is a birthright if I'm dead? Jacob said, first swear to me. And he did it. On oath, Esau traded away his rights as the firstborn. Jacob gave him bread and the stew of lentils. He ate and drank and got up and left. That's how Esau shrugged off his rights as the firstborn. This is the word.